In task number 2, we should now use that struct to create concrete instances inside of the main function. And we should create them in two different ways. Directly in the main function, and then also in the main function with help of such a creation function, which I did show you in the previous course section. And we can use any values for those fields of our choice. So I'll do that here. I'll start with first product. The variable name is up to you, which I'll declare and initialize in one go with the colon equal sign operator. And I'll create a new product instance here by using that struct literal notation, where we use the struct name and then opening and closing curly braces. And then you did learn that you can add values for those fields by targeting the fields by name, for example, ID. And then with a colon, you can set a value, like first dash product as an ID for that first product struct which we're creating here. And then you can add a comma and add the next key value pair, for example, target the title or also the description and then thereafter the title. The order does not matter in that case when you are using those keys. But if you plan on setting all values anyways, and you are fine with keeping the order, so the order laid out in that blueprint, you can also omit the keys down there and just set the values as a comma separated list. So first product as a title, as an ID, then as a title maybe a book, then as a description a nice book, and then last but not least, separated by another comma, the price, like $10.99, something like that. And I'll hit the auto format shortcut here, which actually formatted this there in a more readable way, but left that code here as it was. You can also split that across multiple lines if you prefer that. If that is what you want to do, you just have to make sure that you add a comma after the last value as well. And then I'll hit that auto format shortcut to make that more readable. And now we created our first struct instance. Now we should create two products here, or two instances in two different ways. And the second way involves such a creation helper function. And we did also learn about those functions in the previous course section. It's a regular function in the end, just a function that only exists to create structs with that struct literal approach. And therefore here, maybe below the struct, though again the exact position does not matter, we can add a new function and name it new product following that naming convention, where if we have a function that creates an instance of a struct, the function name should include new and then the struct name that will be created. And then here we can accept parameters that will give us the data that's needed for creating that struct. And that could be the ID, which is a string here, then the title, or just T if you want to shorten it, that is a string, then D for the description, and P for the price, which is a float. But you can also use longer, more descriptive parameter names. I'm just using these short ones here to keep this parameter list short and also to make it super clear that you don't need to use the same names as you picked here as field names in the struct. You can use the same names, but you don't have to. And then here in new product, I will simply create a new struct and then return it. And we can do this in one go using the struct literal notation here. And I'll insert the ID, the title, the description, and the price like that. And this will now return such a product struct. Now we just need to make it clear that new product will return a value of type product. And hence here after that parameter list, I define the type of the return value, which in this case is product. And we're good. Or we're almost good. This will now create a product struct and return it, but we're not returning the pointer, but the concrete value. And therefore, as emphasized multiple times in the previous course section, we will of course temporarily have two copies of this struct in memory. Now this is a super simple struct, not very complex, won't have huge pieces of data inside of it, and therefore creating a copy definitely won't be a problem. But still, we might want to return a pointer so that we avoid this extra copy altogether. Therefore, I'll change the return value type here from product to asterisk product to make it clear that we don't want to return the struct value itself, but a pointer to that value instead, so that that extra copy is avoided. Now we just have to make sure that we don't return the struct instance itself, but instead a pointer to it, so the address of that value. And we get that address here by using the ampersand symbol. We can do it like that, creating that product struct instance by using this struct literal notation, and then using the ampersand symbol to get the address of that value, and then to return that address overall. And now in the main function, we can create a second product by calling new product and now just passing some data for those parameters as parameter values, like second product as an ID, then maybe a title of a carpet, and then a description of a beautiful carpet. And then last but not least, the price, which could be 99.99. Like that. As a side note, if that's getting too long for your taste, you can also split that across multiple lines like that. This will be fine. You just should add a comma here at the end as well then. But then, after auto-formatting this, this again is a bit more readable. Maybe we even write it like this. So now we got both products created, both struct instances. The only important difference right now is really just that first product will be the struct value itself, whereas second product will be a pointer to a struct value. But we do have two different structs in memory now. And we do have two variables that will give us access to those structs. In case of first product, getting access is easy because the value itself was stored. In case of second product, we'll have to dereference it first in order to work with that struct value. Nonetheless, we did now create these concrete instances in two different ways. As a last step, we want to output the created data structures in the command line in the main function. And therefore, below these two variable declarations and definitions, I'll use the format package using the auto-completion to automatically add the import. And then here we can simply execute println. And to println, I'll pass the first product. And then I'll copy that and also output the second product, though, very important, that would be the address. If we want to output the value itself, we need to dereference it first by adding a star here. Alternatively, we could of course also dereference it here so that we store the value in second product. Then we don't need to dereference it down there. But I'm happy with storing the pointer here and dereferencing it here so that we also see this scenario in action. And now if we save everything and we quickly run our module, we see our two structs and their respective data being output in the command line. And that's now task number 2 solved. In task number 3, we now want to add a connected function. So a function that's closely connected to the struct that will then output the struct data. And we want to call that function from inside the main function then. So basically what we did here should now be put into a separate function that we can call here in main then. And such a connected function is called a method, as you learned. It's a regular function that also gets this receiver argument, which will be provided automatically by Go, and that receiver argument will give us access to that struct to which we tie the function. So therefore here, below the struct definition, I'll add a function which could be named print data or output data or whatever you want. And it's a regular function. It could also accept parameters, but I'll add that special receiver argument thing here in addition. And here we now specify the struct to which this function should belong. And in this case, that's the product. So I'll name this prod. The name is up to you, and set it to type product. And it's up to you whether you want the value here or a pointer. But I'll go for the pointer and hence add the asterisk, since that will avoid unnecessary copies. And in here we can now output the data. Now we could just use the println function again here and just output prod, or to be precise, dereference it and output it. That would be a quick and easy way, and if you did it like that, that's fine. But here I'll actually write a little bit more complex code. I'll use the printf function here to output the different fields with more annotation, so that I can say ID colon and then output the ID. And hence here I'll just point at prod.id. And I'll use the dot notation here for getting access to an individual field in that struct data package, which it is in the end. As a side note, we can use the dot notation here, even though this is a pointer, and therefore theoretically we should not be able to use it, but we can use it because Go gives us this shortcut and automatically dereferences this pointer for us. So Go automatically gives us this code if we use the dot notation on a pointer like that. It's a little convenience feature built in. And with that we'll output the ID. Then I want to add a line break, which we can do by adding a /n. This is basically a special character representing a line break. And then I'll also output the title here, and therefore refer to prod title here. Prod title. And then also output the description here, and hence refer to prod description. And then also output the price, like that, price. And here we'll have a floating point value, and I want to limit the output to 2 decimal places, and therefore I'll use a little placeholder here, which we saw before in the course already. %.2f tells Go that we want to output a floating point value, but only the first 2 decimal places. And I'll also say US dollar, and then the concrete value. And therefore here we'll refer to prod price. Now we got that print data method, as it's now called, since it has this receiver argument. And we can now call that method from inside main. Here, instead of calling print line, I can now reach out to the first product and call print data, and do the same for the second product and call print data like that. And if we now save that and then open that console again, if we run that code, that data is being output. Here's our first product data, and you see the price is nicely formatted, and here we got the second product data. So that's working, and that's a very complex, or a bit more complex way of outputting the data. But that is now also task number 3 solved.